and the Oracle of Delphi stated that Athens should trust its wooden walls.
Without saying all that, maybe perhaps, Dan, you can just abridge us a little bit into how we come about the Battle of Salamis.
Yep. So where we left off is that Plan B for the Greek alliance has failed. Spartan king is dead. Thebes has defected over to the Persians as the Persians march through, and Athens is now wide open to the enemy following the battles of Thermopylae and Artemisium, and the allied Greek fleet has retreated back to Salamis, where they're currently regrouping and trying to figure out what to do next. Now, the city of Athens at this point had already had most of its women and children evacuated to the Peloponnese because they had sort of considered this possibility happening. However, at this point, it's now decided to evacuate the city of Athens. And one interesting story to hear about is that the Athenians actually went to the Oracle of Delphi prior to the Persian invasion and asked them what to do about this massive Persian army coming to invade the country. And the Oracle of Delphi stated that Athens should trust its wooden walls. Now, there are two interpretations that end up being debated in the Athenian assembly. One is that the wooden walls refers to a literal wooden wall that's located just around the Athenian Acropolis, which is the highest and most defensible point in the city, where all the temples are. If you visit modern-day Athens and hop out of the Acropolis train station, it is literally just above you. It's this massive sort
That
of
would have been where
stone
the
plateau, yeah.
original statue of Athena was, right?
Yeah.
The one in
Yeah.
gold.
Yeah. And the alternative interpretation advocated by the statesman Themistocles, son of Neocles, the famous Athenian admiral, is that the wooden walls actually refer to the ships of the Athenian fleet, because they're made of wood. And this is ultimately the interpretation that the Athenian assembly decide to go with. And if it's okay, I'm just going to give a sort of brief outline of how the Athenian fleet came about. So a couple of years between the Battle of Marathon and the Battle of Salamis, the Athenians are digging around Attica and they literally strike silver. They find these really, really massive veins of silver ore in the mines in a location called Lavrium. And so they have this debate in the assembly to figure out what to do with them. One proposal advocated by an individual known as Aristides the Just. You might recognize him as the general who was commanding the loot and the captives at the Battle of Marathon. He advocates for the silver that gets mined up to be distributed equally among the citizen body, thereby enriching the entire state. Themistocles instead proposes that the silver be used to invest and expand the Athenian fleet. And the idea is that he's expanding the Athenian fleet.
Could I just add that Themistocles was one of the 12 tribe commanders at the Battle of Marathon as well.
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, he was commanding the Leontis tribe, which was one of the two thinned out tribes at the center.
Yeah.
When Miltiades had them crash into the Persian lines. Just wanted to add that.
Yeah, absolutely. And Themistocles proposes the expansion of the Athenian fleet, and the story is that in his mind, he's thinking of that they need to prepare this fleet in order to repel the future Persian invasion. However, in the assembly, he sort of recognizes that Persia is kind of a ways away, and so because the problem isn't an immediate problem, it's a problem for down the line. So instead, what he does is he exploits Athens' hatred of the island of Aegina, which is just off the Piraeus. It's literally within eyeshot of the Piraeus. And Athens and Aegina at this point have been fighting a long-standing war, which Aegina has been winning on the sea. If you want to know how much naval domination that Aegina has over Athens, there's one time during a festival, the Aeginetans actually sailed into port and then kidnapped a bunch of Athenian officials. It was like Barbossa in the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie. It really was like that sort of in public, and it was like insane.
That is just amazing.
Yeah. So the Athenians really, really hate the Aeginetans, and so they are more than happy to invest in this new fleet in order to fight them. And it is also
Plus,
worth.
it's an easy
Oh, yeah.
sell, right?
Yeah,
Since they have a real legitimate reason to even
Yeah.
go for a fleet.
yeah,
But even though that's not the stated end goal, I mean, in
Yeah.
Themistocles' mind.
yeah, absolutely. And looking at this debate is quite interesting because Aristides' proposal of sort of distributing this money across the Athenian citizen body, it would have made everybody richer, and thus you would have actually had more people go up the strata into the hoplite to afford hoplite equipment. So it would have actually ended up expanding Athenian land forces, which would have also helped fight the Persians, to be fair. However, if you look at this debate in hindsight, the Athenian navy becomes sort of the biggest navy of all the Greek city-states and also the largest employer in the Athenian state. It hires so many sailors because all of the Athenian sailors, also known as thetes, are volunteers who are paid a wage. They're paid, and the rate of the Peloponnesian War, 1 drachma per day. And that's not included like loot that you'd get from campaigning. And everyone knows how soldiers in the ancient world do love a little bit of loot as a bit of a bonus. And so not only do you have this appeal of fighting this direct and immediate threat of Aegina, which everybody hates, you also have this sort of immediate opportunity if the fleet gets deployed against Aegina for each and every sailor to win loot and also glory, rather than just having this money upgrading to a hoplite and then waiting for the Persians to come back again.
I might just also add, given the nature of the Persian invasion, which had a substantial naval force as well,
Yeah,
and with the Peloponnesians providing, you could say, an easy bulk of the land forces,
yeah,
it's still going to be quite vulnerable to raiding and shipments if, say, a massive Athenian navy did not exist. But we get to the
yeah,
disposition of the forces, it would become how powerful the Athenian navy was amongst any city-state at this point.
yeah. And this is one of the things that sort of convinces me that Themistocles and the Athenians had this in mind to fight Persia when they were planning out this fleet, because having the Athenians invest so much money into this premier fleet, the biggest fleet among the Greek city-states, it actually fills in the strategic gap that the Greeks had, where they had plenty of land forces provided by Sparta and the Peloponnesian League. However, the Persians could just do what they did at Marathon, just sail around them and attack where the land forces aren't positioned. So this definitely, whether by design or accident, this does really, really help the prospects of the Greek alliance.